All right, Mech Warriors, we've got an incoming Q&A here, an incoming Tactica question from those who are perhaps new to Battletech. You're making your way through the game of armored combat, you're checking out the different mechs, you're plotting your lances, and we see this configuration of mechs. We see various mechs carrying various weapons, multiple weapons. As soon as we make that jump from really medium to heavy, you now see something like the Warhammer or the Archer, double missile launchers, double PPCs, multiple medium lasers, machine guns, short-range missiles. You make that jump from heavies to assaults, and now, like the Battlemaster, you've just got weapons everywhere. Big guns never tire. But the question is, what use is having all of these weapons if you can't regularly fire them? This idea from mech design where a mech generates heat as it operates, also as it fires weapons. You have heat sinks and coolant systems that flush out that heat, managing that heat scale. And of course, the various penalties on the heat scale where they start to stack, they start to build up. You can push the heat a little bit, but ultimately, if you continue, it affects your movement, it affects your ability to fire, it affects your ability to move. And then scaling from that, of course, ammunition could explode, and you've got various shutdown effects that are going to happen until that heat clears. So from the perspective of mech design, from the perspective of a war machine, from the perspective of battle value, paying points for something that I can't use every single turn. Am I better off taking mechs that can do that, drop those weapons, mech design, what is the point? That's the framework, and that's what we're going to focus on. Because Battletech is kind of unique compared to other war games. What you see with other war games is a weapons profile. I've got a tank and I've got a weapons profile. Generally speaking, I can fire every single weapon on that tank, no problem. Now, of course, things have to be in range and I have to have line of sight. I might be able to hit it and not affect it because of armor, but I can still fire it. If I've got 6 or 7 weapons, I can fire it. There are some weapons in other rule sets that are 0-1 or 0-2, meaning there's limited ammunition for game balance. But again, I can fire it. I can go and fire that. Years ago, some time ago, when I was playing my Grey Knights in Warhammer 40,000, I would take a lot of Land Raiders. And these are massive, massive battle tanks. They've got las cannons on either side. They've got heavy bolters. They've got a lot of weaponry. But you could also pay the points. I'm not saying this is efficient. You could also pay the points for hunter-killer missiles, which was a one-shot, kind of an infinite range, super powerful missile. You know, Games Workshop still loves paying crazy points for stuff that's like one use and marginal at best. But I was trying to get the maximum firepower also for the lulls. I would upgrade these Land Raiders to have these hunter-killer missiles. And in an older book, you could take, I think, a limit of 2. So that first turn, I would do the Battletech Alpha Strike of firing off all these missiles to kind of attack my opponent before they could attack me, because it was a you go, I go system. But that's an example of I could fire everything. You get to Battletech, and now, yeah, technically I can fire everything if I'm in range and I have line of sight and all that, but it's going to build up heat and shut my mech down or explode my ammo. What good is having it? So the secondary framework to that is, it's part of the nuance of Battletech, but what it represents and what you want to be aware of is heat management is important. There are going to be times when you fire off everything and really push and build that heat. Think of the weapons profile of a mech, and I'm focusing in on the Warhammer because it's a great example. You've got those PPCs, or also a Marauder. You've got the PPCs, you've got the autocannon, the short-range missiles, you've got the medium lasers. I can fire all of those. I can push all of those if the situation calls for it. Another reason why you have weapons that you can fire but build heat, push over the heat, is the fact that mechs take damage. I want to have a whole kind of brace of weapons, even if I can't fire them every turn, even if it's going to generate a ton of heat, say like the Rifleman, because as I take damage in Battletech and as it goes to internal, as weapons get destroyed, I've still got something. If I designed, there's a bit of redundancy there, right? A bit of backup. If I designed a mech And I said, look, these are the weapons. I can fire them every single turn. So I've got like a PPC and 2 medium lasers and a short range missile pack. And it's on a heavy, it's on an assault mech chassis. And I've got heat sinks to clear that every single turn. If I'm in range, I'm firing it. Well, for the tonnage, you don't really have enough weapons as you start to take damage, because the heavier the mech, the more you're going to put it out there on that front line. You're going to take damage. I'm going to lose the PPC. I'm going to lose those medium lasers. Usually they're in the arm. The arm gets blown off. You lose those weapons, right? What am I going to do? Where if I have more weapons in theory than I can shoot as I take damage, I've still got some weapons in the game. So Battletech is a little bit different from that nuance in that as a new player, you're looking and saying, hey, I like all these weapons. This is great. Look at this. But then you figure, I physically can't even fire them all in one turn. Another example would be the Stalker, right? I can't fire all these things in one turn. All the lasers and all the missiles, I'll shut down and possibly blow up all in one. But you can push that heat. You can push different ranges. As you take damage, it's consistent to make sure that mech is still an absolute threat in the game by having these multiple weapon systems, as you move up really into the heavy and the assault mechs. So it's a nuance of Battletech, and the heat management represents that narrative, but there are also good tactical reasons to have this. And then finally, layering over that before we turn it over to the mech warriors in the comments, different mechs build different heat. Some are a little bit more aligned and optimal to flush heat, or where you can almost fire everything every single turn. While other machines, of course, that's at a sacrifice of armor or other things. There's only so many internal slots. Or some mechs are extremely weapons heavy for the weight class that you'd never be able to fire it. So it's some heat management, and it's some understanding how things go in play and how you take damage.